The Supreme Court today asked for mediation between the two warring factions in the Ram Temple agitation. India Today is the only channel that's been reporting through the day from ground zero in Ayodhya. I want to kickstart Newsroom tonight by bringing you this report filed by my colleague Nishant Chaturvedi, who spoke to Mahants at ground zero in and around the disputed structure to see what they made of the Supreme Court coming out today and saying that mediation must be the path for building the Ram Mandir. Here it is, an India Today exclusive.
So it's Ram Dhun in Ayodhya, in every house. But what Supreme Court has said today, what will happen after that? What are the Mahants thinking after that? What are the sadhus of Ayodhya thinking after that? So we have almost everyone who is a party and who is an opinion maker in Ayodhya. Let's speak to them. First of all, we have Mahant Ramdas from Nirmohi Akhada, who have party to the petition which has been filed. मैं आपसे जानना चाहूँगा रामदास जी, मुझे एक बात बताएं. आज जब सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने इस बात का ऐलान कर दिया है और कह दिया है कि अब बातचीत से समाधान निकालने की कोशिश करें वरना आप हमारे पास आएं, तो आप इस पर क्या कहेंगे? क्या बातचीत से समाधान नहीं निकाला जा सकता? आप ही ने 1885 में निर्मोही अखाड़ा ने ही केस फाइल किया था, अभी तक तो कोर्ट में कुछ हुआ नहीं. बातचीत क्यों नहीं कर लेते हैं?
नहीं, बातचीत के साथ साथ हम न्यायालय का भी फैसला स्वीकारेंगे, क्योंकि हाई कोर्ट ने एक रोशनी डाली. 60 साल तक मुकदमे चले और लेकिन 60 साल के बाद जब वो खुदाई हुई तो खुदाई में तो पुरातत्व ने साबित कर दिया कि वो राम जन्मभूमि है और उसी जगह पे राम का जन्म हुआ था. तो सिद्ध हो गया है. अब सिर्फ सुप्रीम कोर्ट की मोहर लगनी.
Just look at these faces. Have a look at these faces. It's Sita Ram all over their face. एक बात बताइए, आप लोगों को क्या लगता है? राम मंदिर के बारे में कुछ पता है आपको? क्या पता है?
जी, अब राम मंदिर बनेगा.
आपको क्या लगता है?
हमें भी लगता है बनेगा.
लेकिन कैसे बनेगा? कोर्ट में जाके या बातचीत करके?
बातचीत के माध्यम से बनना चाहिए.
आपका क्या कहना है? बातचीत के माध्यम से?
बातचीत के
माध्यम से बनना चाहिए. It's very interesting to know that we have someone here with us who actually predicted that Prime Minister Modi is going to be, Narendra Modi is going to be the Prime Minister of the country, who predicted that BJP is going to form government in UP, who predicted that Yogi Adityanath is going to be the CM of UP. He is Swamy Hardayal Shastri. मैं आपसे जानना चाहूँगा, आपने कई सारी भविष्यवाणियाँ की हैं, कई सारी भविष्यवाणियाँ आपकी सच भी हुई हैं. राम मंदिर के लिए क्या भविष्यवाणी है?
देखिए, राम मंदिर बहुत क्लियर भविष्यवाणी होगा, वही सत्य होने जा रही है कि यह अब मंदिर का निर्माण ये होने जा रहा है ज्योतिष के अनुसार, क्योंकि ये संवत विक्रम जो आ रहा है 2074, जिसका राजा बुध और मंत्री गुरु है. भारत विश्व के गुरु के रूप में उभरेगा. अब आइए संवैधानिक संकट. एक मिनट बता दूं, जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट का मंशा है वो धारा सीपीसी के 89 पर, और 89 में अगर कैबिनेट ये काम करे कि कैबिनेट पास करके राष्ट्रपति को लिख दे और राष्ट्रपति सुप्रीम कोर्ट से अपना ओपिनियन मांग ले, क्योंकि तीनों न्यायपालिका, कार्यपालिका, विधायिका, इसका हेड कौन होता है? राष्ट्रपति. और राष्ट्रपति कैबिनेट के मंजूरी के बाद है यही होगा. ये ज्योतिष आप हमारा नोट कर लीजिए कि यह प्रधानमंत्री दोनों राज्यसभा लोकसभा दोनों से पास करा करके और सीधे राष्ट्रपति को भेज देंगे और राष्ट्रपति सुप्रीम कोर्ट से ओपिनियन मांग लेगी.
Now what is interesting now is that the deadlock still continues, but one thing which is going to be there forever is this, not only in Ayodhya but in this country.
That's the ground report from Ayodhya. Of course, there the saints, the seers, excited and hopeful that there finally will be a Ram Mandir. Joining us on the broadcast tonight, the one man whose opinion matters most, because remember, the Hindu Samaj is ready for mediation. They're hopeful that there will be some path that's found. But standing against them is the Babri Masjid Action Committee. The convener of this committee and one of its key faces, Zafaryab Jilani, is joining us on this broadcast, squaring off against him tonight. BJP's senior leader and the man whose petition this is. Remember, Subramanian Swamy is important because it was his petition in the last case which saw Sasikala end up in jail. Now, in another very significant case, it is once again this man whose petition is in the Supreme Court, whose petition could lead to some forward movement, if at all that's possible. Joining us now is Subramanian Swamy, Zafaryab Jilani. I want to go across to Zafaryab Jilani first. As the convener, sir, of the Babri Masjid Action Committee, what do you make of what the three judges, led by the Supreme Court Chief Justice, Justice Keher, said? They're saying there must be some kind of a consensual decision. This is about sentiments, this is about belief. The two parties must sit together and find some way forward. Mediation has been attempted in the past, talks have been tried. Are you prepared, sir, to give them one more shot?
We don't dispute that it is the concern which has been shown by the Honorable Chief Justice of India and his colleague judges is definitely appreciable and we welcome it. But the question is that some exercise which has already been done for repeated times at the highest level in the last 27 years, then there is hardly any scope for its repetition. We have to inform the Honorable Chief Justice, because he was, today no case was mentioned. It was a case Mr. Subramanian Swamy had gone. Our counsels are not present, so the Honorable Court could not be informed as to how many times this exercise has been done. Twice at the highest level of the Prime Minister, thrice at the level of the Shankaracharya. Then how long? And even the Honorable High Court has observed in its order that it had made, three judges of the High Court had made efforts to get the matter settled by compromise. They said that there is no scope of settlement. So all these things, when all these things are informed to the Honorable Court, perhaps the court will itself have the power. The court has got the power under Section 89 of the Code of Civil Procedure to have this initiative and to have this exercise in the Supreme Court. So we will express and we will...
Okay, let Subramanian Swamy respond to this. Dr. Swamy, from 1986 onwards, multiple efforts have been made. In 1989, 1990, when Chandrasekhar, the then Prime Minister, constituted a committee of 3 Chief Ministers. In 1992, when former Prime Minister Narasimha Rao made an attempt, he got a committee of Cabinet Ministers. In 2002, when President R. Venkatraman led the initiative in 2003, this time by the Shankaracharya of the Kanchi Koti. In 2010, when intellectuals and religious leaders got together. In 2016 as well, attempts have been made. Now, you just heard Zafaryab Jilani say it's been tried in the past, there is no middle ground, which is why there's a dispute. How do you believe that an attempt which has failed multiple times in the past would succeed this time? They're saying it's futile, it's pointless.
Well, first of all, I'm not here to respond to anybody because you matter. The issue is this, that I was involved when Chandrasekhar was there. I was the law minister, and I was also there when Narasimha Rao was taking it up, and I was had a minister rank position as commission on the or as a commission chairman of the GATT commission. So I know all from first hand. The fact of the matter is these were all initiatives by politicians. For the first time, we are having the Supreme Court Chief Justice say that I myself am ready to be a mediator in this, and I only said to him that bilateral discussion with the other parties is futile. It will not come through. So there has to be a Supreme Court sitting judge who will monitor this and mediate this. And that's where it stands, and 31st March the court will tell us what they intend to do. As far as the matter being in the court, we are ready for it. We have already won 95% of what we have demanded in the Allahabad High Court. the so-called title dispute claim of the Sunni Waqf Board has been rejected by the Allahabad High Court, and the Ram Lala being the owner of the middle dome of the Babri Masjid, that has also been accepted. The issue therefore only remains in the Supreme Court whether they uphold the Allahabad High Court judgment or not.
Good
the
point.
Allahabad
That's a
High Court
good
did make
point by Dr. Swamy.
Observation that for the purpose of harmony, the third.
That 95% of what the agitators, the Mandir movement wants has already been accepted by the Allahabad High Court. And this time, the difference between this attempt at mediation, Mr. Jilani, and previous attempts is that a Supreme Court judge himself is willing to play mediator. In the past, we've had politicians at different levels, Prime Minister, President attempt this. We've had religious figures like the Shankaracharya attempt this. This time, somebody who's neutral, somebody who's a Supreme Court judge is willing to help in the process of mediation. Why should there be such a fixed approach? It may not have worked in the past, but surely let's give it one more shot. That's the only way forward, because something has to give, and the only way something can give amicably is if there is a discussion. Mr. Jilani? Mr. Jilani?
But in this case, I told you that we have repeatedly made this attempt in the presence of the three chief ministers, when Mr. Mulayam Singh Yadav, Mr. Sharad Pawar and Mr. Bharat Singh Shekhawat, all the three were appointed by the Prime Minister of India. And then in his presence, the Vishwa Hindu Parishad representatives and we sat together for months, several months the exercise was done. Again during the regime of Narasimha Rao, when this Subodh Khan Sahib was appointed by the Prime Minister, and this negotiation was held between the two parties, and then they announced the Kart Seva. So when all the exercise has already been done, then who else is there who will go some extent further? Because their only demand is that we should give up our right, we should not have the claim of masjid, which is not possible for the Muslims. Muslims cannot surrender their right. Muslims have got a right under the Constitution of India, under the law of the land. So it is only the court of law which can decide in whom the title is, and this matter has been decided by 5 judges bench of the Supreme Court twice. The Supreme Court has already held by 5 judges in 1994 and then in 2002 that yes, title will be decided by the court and the parties will accept it. So all these things have to be brought to the notice of the Honorable Chief Justice.
Dr. Swamy, it's easy to say that there be mediation, that there be talks, but the only way that there can be any resolution which would be acceptable to you and to others who've been part of the Ram Mandir movement is if the Babri committee gives up its claim to the dome, if it gives up its claim to having a masjid over there. They're saying it would seem as if we've buckled under pressure. That's our claim. How can we give it up? Without that, there is no mediation. So essentially all you're saying is give up your claim. They're saying, why would we give up our claim? We haven't done it for so many decades. Why would we give up the claim now?
Well, the Government of India's White Paper 1993 records that the Babri Action Committee's chairman, Mr. Said Shahabuddin, said that if there is a pre-existing temple and it is proved, then they themselves will give up the claim to Babri Masjid.
Absolutely.
And that has been the stand of the government also. The Narasimha Rao government filed an affidavit to say that if it is shown that there is a pre-existing temple, then we will hand over the land to the Hindus. And the Allahabad High Court then asked the Archaeological Survey of India and Dr. B.B. Lal and K. Muhammad of Kerala. They did the extensive investigation and gave a report to say yes, there was a pre-existing temple, and in fact under the Babri Masjid stood is a very big temple complex even to be seen. So therefore, when there was a temple already there which was demolished by the foreign invaders, then now we are only asking it to be restored. And as far as the demolition of the Babri Masjid is concerned, that's a criminal act according to the Government of India. And there is a case going on and Supreme Court has renewed it with vigor. So that's a separate issue altogether.
You're saying don't conflate the two issues.
Any Muslim country, without exception,
Go on, sir. Complete your argument.
Yes, I do say that, and I say that there is no Muslim country, Muslim majority country in the world which believes that a masjid cannot be shifted or demolished
for a public purpose. They do it all the time in Turkey, they do it in Saudi Arabia, they do it in Iran, and as far as the Muslim majority in India is concerned, they demolish temples every day in Kashmir. And we are not saying anything about
Let
that.
Zafaryab Jilani respond to this. Dr. Subramanian Swamy saying that in countries like Saudi Arabia, which are out and out Islamic countries, mosques are demolished all the time for infrastructure projects, for widening roads. And he's also saying that in Islam, where you do the namaz is not important, and therefore his contention is that the temple, that the mosque at the Babri Masjid site can be shifted to across the Saryu River, and because that particular spot is where Bhagwan Ram was born, and he's saying that there's enough scientific evidence to back that, therefore let the masjid go across the Saryu River and let a Bhavya Ram Mandir come up, which is what the agitation is all about. He's saying that this happens abroad in Islamic countries where mosques are raised all the time. How do you respond to what Dr. Swamy is saying?
First of all, we don't accept any such happening. He must come forward with some. Moreover, whatever is happening in Saudi Arabia is not an example for us. We go by the religion of Islam as ordained by Quran and Hadith, and then Ijma and Qiyas. Therefore, Subramanian Swamy, moreover, he is not at all a party to the case, and this is at all no argument. We have the case has to be decided according to law of the land, and this argument has never been advanced in the case. There is no issue to this effect. So the case has to be decided in accordance with law, and between the parties, Subramanian Swamy's stand has got no meaning. Whatever he says on the media, that is not going to affect at all the case.
Okay, Dr. Swamy, your antecedents being questioned. They're saying you're not even party to the case. There are two parties that have been fighting. Where has Dr. Swamy emerged from? You're being called a publicity seeker, saying you've got nothing to do with it. You're jumping in, seeking publicity. What does Dr. Swamy have to do with this case? There's a very long fought battle that's going on. Where's Dr. Swamy jumped into the picture, they're asking?
Well, this is why I wanted a one-to-one meeting, because these silly questions I have to answer over and over again. I filed a writ petition, the court heard it, they were impressed with my arguments, and they said, why don't you intervene in the main matter and present all these arguments? And I said, there's no way I can do it. So the court then passed an order, which a copy of the order is available on the website of the Supreme Court, where they said that they are converting my writ petition into an intervening petition, the main matter. So why this silly question all the time? I am not a party. Of course, I am not owner of any masjid or any temple. I am here on a public interest, that my right to worship Ram Lala has been taken away from me and has been abridged so severely and for such a long time. And that point has been upheld by the Supreme Court. And today the Supreme Court heard me in length. How can you expect the Supreme Court not to hear me if I am not a party? What a silly thing to say.
Fair point by Dr. Swamy, because if the Supreme Court wanted and thought that Dr. Swamy wasn't a bona fide party, they could have tossed his case out. They didn't do that. So I think it's wrong to question the legitimacy of what he's claiming. Whether the court agrees with it or not is something that needs to be established. I want to introduce now to the newsroom Vinay Katyar, the original poster boy of the Ram Janmabhoomi agitation. He's joining us on this broadcast. Vinay Katyar ji, स्वागत है आपका इंडिया टुडे पे. हम सुन रहे हैं कि किस तरीके से जफरयाब जिलानी, जो कि बाबरी मस्जिद एक्शन कमेटी के हैं, वो कह रहे हैं कि कोई मध्यस्थता का सीन ही नहीं है. वो कह रहे हैं कुछ हो ही नहीं सकता क्योंकि मध्यस्थता की कोशिश की जा चुकी है, ये बार बार फेल हो चुकी है. इसलिए लोग इतना एक्साइटेड क्यों हो रहे हैं? कह रहे हैं कि 1988 से कोशिश हो रही, 1986 से, अब तक कभी कामयाब नहीं हुई, तो अब कामयाब क्यों होगी?
नहीं, अभी तक 78 बार युद्ध हो चुका है, लाखों लोग मारे जा चुके हैं, और कोई किसी भी प्रकार की समस्या का समाधान नहीं हो रहा. इसलिए नहीं हो रहा कि बातचीत का प्रोसेस जो है वो ठीक ढंग से प्रारंभ नहीं हुआ. गंभीरता से बातचीत का प्रोसेस शुरू होना चाहिए, और मैं समझता हूं बातचीत के माध्यम से बड़ी बड़ी चीजें सॉल्व हो जाती हैं.
कैसे आप कह रहे हैं कि बातचीत ठीक से नहीं हुई? वीपी सिंह फॉर्मर प्राइम मिनिस्टर कोशिश कर चुके हैं, फॉर्मर प्राइम मिनिस्टर चंद्रशेखर कोशिश कर चुके हैं, नरसिम्हा राव जी कोशिश कर चुके हैं, प्रेसिडेंट वेंकट रमन कोशिश कर चुके हैं.
देखिए, वीपी सिंह ने कोई कोशिश नहीं की थी राम जन्मभूमि की. हाँ, नरसिंह राव जी ने जरूर कोशिश की थी, अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी की थी, चंद्रशेखर जी ने की थी, इन लोगों ने जरूर कोशिश की थी. लेकिन मेरा ये कहना है कि जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा हुआ है, मैं समझता हूँ ठीक है, वो व्यक्तिगत उनके विचार होंगे, लेकिन जो भी उन्होंने कहा है उनके विचारों का स्वागत करना चाहिए और मैं तो उनका स्वागत करता हूँ। कम से कम बातचीत का प्रोसेस तो शुरू होना चाहिए। जिलानी साहब को पता नहीं क्या हो गया है कि वो बातचीत के प्रोसेस ही नहीं शुरू करना चाहते हैं, उनको डर लगता है। मेरा कहना, अगर मेरे पास एविडेंस हैं तो उस एविडेंस के आधार पर बातचीत के माध्यम से वो हमारी बात सुने, उनके पास अगर कोई एविडेंस है तो हम बात सुने, सहानुभूतिपूर्वक सुने। और क्योंकि मस्जिद तो कहीं हटाई जा सकती है, मंदिर भी कहीं भी हटाया जा सकता है, लेकिन सवाल ये उठता है राम की जन्मभूमि नहीं हटाई जा सकती।
Fair enough. Fair enough. Let Zafaryab Jilani respond to this. You're hearing Vinay Katiyar saying that this is where Bhagwan Ram was born. There is enough now scientific evidence by archaeologists of the ASI who are saying that they have documentary evidence going back into history to suggest that that is indeed the birthplace of Bhagwan Ram. Now, do you believe that there's also a changed political context? Remember, this intervention by the Supreme Court, its oral observations today coming on the back of a massive BJP victory in Uttar Pradesh. 325 MLAs in UP, they've got the majority in this lower house, they've got the majority now, overwhelming majority in Uttar Pradesh, and in some time they will have the majority in the Rajya Sabha as well. Do you believe that the political dynamics have changed and therefore mediation may be more advisable so that there is at least some middle ground that is found? Otherwise, at some point in time in the future, once there's a majority in the Rajya Sabha, legislation can be moved. They can bring a legislation and ram that through the parliament as well.
You see, Parliament has seen a bigger victory with Rajiv Gandhi, and Parliament has seen that, but the Supreme Court has never gone with the majority. The Supreme Court has proved that entire Parliament was in favor of this judicial bill and appointment of judicial commission. Supreme Court rejected it and declared it ultra vires. So the might of the Parliament and might of the party BJP has got no meaning, has got no effect upon the Supreme Court. We trust upon our judiciary and we hope that Supreme Court will go by the Constitution of India as it stands, and no such amendment can be made by the Parliament which takes away fundamental rights or which takes away religious right, as it has been held by the Supreme Court 13 years bench. So we are not afraid of any majority. We are not afraid of 325%. We feel this country is to be ruled by Constitution, by the courts of law, or to enforce the Constitution of India and rule of law. Country is to be governed by rule of law and by the Constitution, not by the astha of any particular community. Astha of each community has got equal value in this country. Therefore, we are not at all worried by the majority of...
Let Vinay Katiyar respond to that. आस्था के मायने नहीं ज़फरयाब जिलानी कह रहे हैं, वो कह रहे हैं कि कानून के मायने हैं, और बजाय इसके कि ये 325 सीटें आ गई उस प्रेशर में अब कोई सेटलमेंट की जाए, वो कह रहे हैं वेट कीजिए, अगर कोर्ट ने आप लोगों के पक्ष में रूल किया तो बनेगा मंदिर, नहीं बनेगा तो नहीं बनेगा। जल्दबाजी क्यों की जा रही है? वो कह रहे हैं कि कोर्ट की रूलिंग की वेट कीजिए आप।
नहीं, सवाल ये उठता है, कोर्ट ने ही 3 जजों ने कहा है, सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जजों ने, ये उनके विचार हैं कि भाई बातचीत के माध्यम से इस समस्या का समाधान निकले, और कहा है बड़ा संवेदनशील मामला है। मैं जिलानी साहब से पूछना चाहता हूँ कि जब मोहम्मद साहब का, पवित्र पैगंबर साहब का बाल खो गया था तो देश के अंदर तूफान आ गया था, लेकिन वो जब बाल मिला तो उनके धर्मगुरु ने कह दिया यही बाल है, तो सबने मान लिया कि भाई यही बाल है, किसी ने उस पर वाद विवाद नहीं खड़ा किया। लेकिन आज सवाल ये उठता है कि राम जन्मभूमि ये आस्था का सवाल है, हम ये नहीं कह रहे, जबकि हाई कोर्ट से लोग हार चुके हैं। हाई कोर्ट ने इस बात को स्वीकार कर लिया है कि ये राम जन्मभूमि है, इसके नीचे ये हिंदू टेम्पल का स्ट्रक्चर है, ये बात स्वीकार कर ली। इसके बावजूद भी संवेदनशील मामला होने के कारण से 3 हिस्सों में उसको बांट दिया। 2 हिस्सा हिंदू समाज को मिल गए, 1 हिस्सा इनको दे दिया गया, मुस्लिम समाज को दे दिया गया। मैं कहता हूँ बातचीत से जिलानी साहब क्यों भागना चाहते हो? जरा बैठो, बात करो, उसमें से अगर कोई समस्या का समाधान निकलता है तो अच्छी बात। सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जज ने ये भी कहा कि अगर आवश्यकता पड़ी, अगर आप नहीं करते तो हम इंटरवीन करेंगे, तो वो उसमें इंटरव्यू भी कर सकते हैं। तो ये ऐसा वातावरण क्यों बनाना चाहते हैं पहले से ही कि भाई कि इस समस्या, बातचीत से समस्या का समाधान नहीं हो सकता?
Okay.
ये जिलानी साहब ऐसा क्यों कहना चाहते हैं?
Okay, final comments, Mr. Jilani. I'm out of time. You're here, Vinay Katiyar is saying, ek koshish karke dekhiye. The fact is the High Court has indeed in Allahabad ruled that there was a temple over there. So part of the judgment has gone against you. The same could happen in the Supreme Court as well. Why are you so dead set against a conversation? Vinay Katiyar ji is saying, baat karke dekhiye, let's see what emerges from that conversation.
Yes, whatever they say, they will decide in accordance with law of the land and in accordance with the Constitution of India, and we trust upon the Supreme Court that it will be decided in accordance with law and justice will be done to us, and we will abide by the judgment of the Supreme Court.
I'm going to leave it there. Very clear. Vinay Katiyar ji saying, baatcheet karo. Zafaryab Jilani saying, there's no point in talking. Let the Supreme Court decide. I'm going to leave it there. Vinay Katiyar ji, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks, Jilani, for joining us on the newsroom. I want to now start the newsroom face-off. Joining us is Sambit Patra of the BJP. Maulana Khalid Rashid Firangi Mehli is a member of the All India Muslim Personal Law Board. He joins us live from Lucknow. Dr. Zeenat Shaukat Ali is the Director General of the World Institute of Islamic Studies for Dialogue, Peace and Gender Justice. But before that, I want to get you some key excerpts of what Yogi Adityanath, UP's new Chief Minister, said in what could be his concluding address in Parliament. He lays out some thoughts about the kind of Chief Minister he hopes to be. That was Yogi Adityanath. Now, we've essentially established that the Babri Action Committee is not interested in dialogue. They want to wait for the Supreme Court's final verdict. The Hindu community very keen that there be dialogue, that there be some kind of a mediation. I want to put my first question to Dr. Zeenat Shaukat Ali. You've just heard both sides of the argument before this. Very clearly, the Babri Masjid Action Committee is opposed to dialogue. How then do you believe can a way be found to move forward? Obviously, the BJP and its supporters at this time, they've tried so hard to build a Ram Mandir for many decades. They've struggled. Now they sense an opportunity. They'd like to push through. How do you think a way forward is possible?
Thank you, Rahul, for inviting me. I think...
Go on, ma'am. I hear you just fine. Dr. Shaukat Ali, I hear you fine. Go ahead, please.
Great. I think that the way forward is dialogue. Dialogue and dialogue, negotiation and negotiation. Because if this time the Muslims and Hindus don't come together, sit together, when will they do so? This has been the Ganga Jamnavi culture of our past, and we have to retain it. Getting into legal niceties and getting into, sideways to get out of a situation, I don't think is a point. They must sit together and they must talk
Khalid
and
Firangi
they must try to sort issues.
That's a very, very good, sensible voice coming from Zeenat Shaukat Ali. She's saying that given our Ganga Jamni culture, our tradition, there must be dialogue. So that both sides feel that whatever has been arrived at has happened through consensus instead of one side being totally unhappy. Why this rigid opposition to dialogue?
I have already given my statement in the morning also that we welcome the observation of the Honorable Supreme Court, and the All India Muslim Personal Law Board is not against sitting on a dialogue, is not against any kind of dialogue. We are interested in an amicable solution to this problem, and no one is taking a rigid stand. And I
just heard what Zafaryab Jilani said. He's the convener of the Babri Masjid Action Committee. He's ruling out dialogue. He says it will seem as if we buckled under pressure. There is no question of dialogue.
I think that he is saying so because six times these parties have sat down to find a solution, but certain political parties have
do not allow an amicable solution. So I think that these people are not ready for it. But as far as the personal law board is concerned, it is a party to this issue in the Supreme Court, and we are of the view that yes, once it must be tried, especially when the Chief Justice himself has said so.
Okay, Sambit Patra, we've seen people like Zafaryab Jilani, who are key stakeholders in this debate, take a very strong position, say no to dialogue. How do you try and convince them to come on board? They're saying just wait for the Supreme Court decision, we're not interested in dialogue.
No, well, we'll wait for March 31st, and I was hearing Mr. Subramanian Swamy while you were interviewing him, and he has said that we'll go ahead till March 31st. Let's wait whether they agree or not. But the bigger issue is three words used by Supreme Court today were sentimental, sensitive and amicably. Look, the Supreme Court realized that this is a very sensitive issue and it's a very sentimental issue. So on this count, the Supreme Court's Chief Justice in fact offered himself as a mediator, and I believe this is one of the biggest happenings in the recent past of India's history. And secondly, and very importantly, as rightly pointed out by the previous panelist also, dialogue is the way democracy should move forward. So we should all look forward to see to it that this dialogue succeeds. And well, to this question that was raised previously, that certain political parties did not allow the consensus to be forged in the years which went before. I would say that for the first time an opportunity has been provided by the Supreme Court where the political process will not take forward the dialogue, but rather the CJI, the Chief Justice of India himself, has agreed to offer himself as a mediator. This is a right opportunity, and I believe all sections should grab this opportunity.
We'll go across to Surinder Jain. Dr. Jain is the Joint General Secretary of the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, amongst the bodies that have been agitating the hardest to try and build a Ram temple at Ayodhya. Now, you've led from the front, you've fought on the ground. Do you believe, Dr. Jain, that this opportunity presented by the Supreme Court can lead to some resolution? Because we're also seeing a backlash. You know, as the Hindu community pushes for dialogue, some people, key stakeholders in the Babri Masjid Action Committee saying absolutely no to dialogue.
Just as the Supreme Court gave the advice, Muslim Personal Law Board and certain other parties belonging to Muslim society, they immediately came forward and said, there is no meaning of dialogues now. We will not participate in any dialogue, and the matter is with judiciary and they should come forward with judgment. I think now there is no scope for any question regarding dialogue.
Also saying that there's no point in dialogue because the other side is not interested, because we were hearing from Zafaryab Jilani, his concern seems to be that if there is dialogue at this time, it will seem as if the Babri Masjid Action Committee bowed under pressure because of this big mandate. He's saying that there will seem that there's been a forced compromise, that a solution has been thrust on them. Therefore, he says, wait for the Supreme Court's final verdict, Dr. Jain.
They can assume in their own way, and they have always assumed the things which they are suitable to them. Before this time, at least 5 dialogues were there. In the last dialogue, which was ended in 1991, it was made an understanding that if it proves that the so-called mosque was built by demolishing the temple, the Muslim society will themselves relinquish their claim and hand over the land to the Hindu society and Ram Janmabhoomi, to be more specific. And now at this time, the judiciary, Allahabad High Court, has clearly said that the mosque was not built on plain land and Ram Janmabhoomi temple was destroyed by Babur or someone else. I think the matter is finished now, the proofs are there, and either Muslim society should come forward and say, all right, we hand over this land because it has been proved, or the central government should come forward and issue an ordinance or make a law in the parliament to clear the way for making the Ram Janmabhoomi.
Do you think the big verdict, Dr. Jain, in Uttar Pradesh changes the dynamics on the ground? 325 seats for the BJP, a person like Yogi Adityanath, who's been very passionate about the Ram temple agitation, leading the state now. Do you think that changes the dynamics? Are you hopeful now? Because the VHP has in the past been upset with the BJP for not moving fast enough. Are you hopeful that with this big mandate, dynamics on the ground change, the BJP moves faster?
No, actually both things are not different and opposite to each other. The people of India have given the mandate to build Ram Mandir by choosing Modi. And by choosing Adityanath as Chief Minister of UP, BJP has given their commitment clear that they are very nearly likely to build Ram Temple. As you are saying, some other people are also saying that the building of Ram Temple is somewhat contrary to this development issue. It is not so in fact. By building Ram Temple, they will defeat jihadi mentality which was represented by Babur. And now at this time, our country is facing the problem of terrorism, which is also a symbol of jihad. If this ideology is defeated and there is no terrorism on our land, I think our development will boost up like anything, and it will pave the way for building a new nation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Surinder Jain, for joining us from Coimbatore. Dr. Firangi Maili, final words from all of you before I conclude. The VHP is saying the very fact that the BJP has appointed a person like Yogi Adityanath, Chief Minister, is as sharp a message as can be sent that they are now finally serious about building the Ram Temple. You can't have Yogi as Chief Minister and think that the Ram Temple will not be a priority. That is simply not possible. And therefore, he says it's better for the Muslim Samaj to reconcile with that idea and find a way forward.
It is up to the government to come forward and clear his stand whether their basic agenda is development or building a Ram Temple. And as far as the observation of Supreme Court is concerned, I think that it has nothing to do with the election in UP.
No, but the timing is curious. It wasn't listed. It suddenly came. This is similar to what happened at the time of the Sasikala. The moment it was known that there would be, that she may become Chief Minister, just then things started moving. So it seems to have a force of its own. It's just kind of, the ball is moving. Dr. Sambit Patra, in conclusion, do you believe that there is a fear that the Prime Minister's agenda for development gets derailed as this element of hardline Hindutva, the Ram Temple agitation comes forward, societal divisions sharpen, the social fabric under threat, under stress, the minorities under pressure? Do you believe that could take away from some of the development ideas the Prime Minister has?
Not at all. Rahul, I believe that faith and development both have to move hand in hand. And remember, development is the core agenda of the Prime Minister, but nonetheless, faith is the agenda of universe since time immemorial. So both have to move together. But having said that, let me just remind in this particular case that as far as negotiations are concerned, while one section believes that this is an issue of faith and concurs with the Honorable Supreme Court, there is a section which believes that this is not a matter of faith, but this is just a titled suit. For me and for a million others, Ram is not just a titled suit, he is my own existence. So my existence and development will move together.
Okay, Dr. Zinat Shaukat Ali, how do you're asking for dialogue, but how do you assuage those in the minority community who feel that this dialogue, mediation is being thrust on us? Because at the end of it, if there is to be amity, it's required that both sides go back thinking that the solution that was arrived at was reached at through consensus, through talks, through mediation, not that it was thrust. That message is also very important, so that this issue is settled once and for all, so that it doesn't keep simmering. Dr. Shaukat Ali?
Yes. You see, what I feel is that, you see, this entire perception is that because of this particular election and Yogi Adityanath coming into power, is sort of going to suppress, it's an oppressive factor and is going to belie the Muslims and force them into a certain position. I think that itself is wrong. The Muslims must show goodwill. This is the time to show goodwill. That is my personal perception. And I believe that what Gandhi ji said, that it is only the strong that can show that kind of goodwill. It is only the strong that can show non-violence. It is only the strong that can come forward. And there is no need to be afraid of the 325 seats. And the last submission I would like to make is that it is my humble submission that you see we should not be moving towards Talibanization. India is a secular republic, it is a democratic republic, it is an example to the world. I don't think there's any country in the world, look at what the USA is doing and where Europe is going. India is unique, it must remain unique.
Okay.
It must come together and its people must work together.
Those are very, very sensible final words. Show goodwill, let this matter be resolved. It's very clear that the Ram temple is at the core of Hindu belief. This is where Bhagwan Ram, Hindus believe, was born. And it's not a title suit, it goes much deeper. If there's goodwill shown at this moment, the impact, the message would be very strong. The question is, will goodwill be shown? We've had all the key newsmakers joining us on this broadcast, the man leading the VHP at this time, the person heading the Babri Masjid Action Committee, Dr. Subramanian Swamy, the key petitioner. So I'm going to thank all my guests, Dr. Sambit Patra, Maulana Khalid Rashid Firangi Mahli, Zinat Shaukat Ali. Thank you very much for joining us.